Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Google Ads Strategy Hub. Today, we're going to be talking about an opinion that I have, and I really want to put it out there and talk about it. And my idea is to get some conversation rolling. And that is my belief that search is no longer matching intent. I believe that search is now matching predictions, and we are inside the predictive era when it comes to Google Ads. Today, this is what the episode is going to get into. So, the short version, the TDLR, as people like to put it, the death of the keyword precision. Google Ads has fundamentally pivoted from the literal area, which is essentially matching your queries, into what I believe is the predictive era, which is matching users to outcomes. In 2026, I believe the search query is no longer a command, but it's merely one of thousands of signals the AI uses to essentially predict whether or not a user is worth your bid in the algorithm. Now, this is an idea that I've been sitting on for a while, and so this opinion video today is me just coming out and stating it. I have been working as a PPC consultant and a strategist for years and years, and I'm really cautious about twisting words or misrepresenting what I'm seeing. So again, I just want to make that caveat that this is an opinion video at this point in time. And so I'm not trying to misrepresent the platform that we deeply rely on, but after spending 17 years working in the industry, working in Google Ads, working in PPC, and just observing account behavior as a coach, I feel ready to really come out and say this as my official thoughts today in 2026 regarding where Google Ads is going and frankly, where I see other platforms heading for the future. So Google Ads, again, I believe no longer matching keywords on intent, but they're predictive. And where this point of view was born for me is really looking at the delta in between what Google is saying, right, in their messaging and what they're saying about the new features, and then really what the data is saying in the accounts that I work on with the clients that I'm consulting to. And when I'm in a position of having to advise this strategy, I need to really be looking at that delta. So again, this drift that I'm seeing in accounts that I'm actually working on to the messaging from Google is really that literal to predictive. And I think for years, we've really talked about match types, right? Like ad nauseum. You could just look on YouTube, you will see 1,000 videos of people talking about this match type or that match type. In fact, I did a huge webinar yesterday with Brad Geddes talking about match type. And I think it's something that we've been debating for years, as well as account structures. But I'm having more and more clients that are coming to me saying, hey, I've done everything right. Things look great, but things still aren't working. And I think it's the dominant agency pitch. It's the dominant thing you see just like bubbling up on YouTube, with the best Google Ads setup for 2026, or copy this strategy and explode your results. And then clients are coming to me frustrated because they're not seeing the results that were promised in either the sell point or, by the agency. And it is really this like, we do it better way of messaging to get clients that is failing clients right now. And so what's happening is these setups, this better way that people are proposing, they're not fixing really what the businesses that I work with are struggling with. What's ending up happening is the industry is making these claims about like phrase or exact or PMAX or shopping. And the real issue at hand is that the entire system that we're working with has drifted and is really failing many of the business owners, which again is why they're coming and consulting with me. And so when I'm talking to advertisers, I'm seeing perfect setups. Like I said, everything is being done right, but they're failing for that client. And the reason that I think, and I'm coming out and saying, is that they're operating under this old model. We're, again, being the literal match era. And so for most of the history, right, leading up until this point, in fact, even what anything in ChatGPT will tell you, which a lot of my clients are going to ChatGPT to try to get information and then feeling stuck. This logic was very linear, right? So the query was the command, right? Like what someone came in and typed. And, that would be matched to a keyword, what they put in the Google Ads platform or, Bing or the other platforms. And then the ad, right, was matched up to this. And so even when the match type started to loosen, right? So when we had, broad, which is very, very broad, right? And phrased, which is very functioning like broad used to be, and exact, which is not even close to exact, but exact-ish. That underlying logic, right? Query to keyword to ad was essentially the same, even though, again, these match types were loosening, which really was a user, right? The person searching is expressing an intent through a query. Google is then matching that query to your keyword that you as the advertiser are bidding on. And then again, first literally, and then Google has opened it up to intent interpretation, and then your ad appeared. And a user, again, typing in the query, matching to the keyword, and it became intent over years. This wasn't like a quick shift. And so the new model, what I'm saying that we're in now, 2026, is that I believe Google has fully shifted to a logic that prioritizes predicted outcomes over literal requests. And I've been arguing this for the past 2 or 3 years, but I didn't really have the volume of data or frankly, this language or thinking model that I've articulated today to really come out and say it as bold-faced as I'm saying today, and to make this case as clearly as I can right now. And again, keep in mind, I'm president of the Paid Search Association. I write on the major journals. My goal is always to stop automation waste when I work with clients, and that is what I offer. So I don't really want to say things that get people all in a panic. I want to say things with that data in mind. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're listening to this. And so again, like when we're thinking about Google moving to this more predictive models, what we're looking at is user signals, journey history, the creative, right? So what does that ad copy? What does that image look like? And then again, that's going to equal that predicted conversion for Google. So instead of Google matching a query to a keyword, Google, again, the algorithm behind the platform, is evaluating a blend of these behavioral signals, past interaction, contextual cues, semantic meaning of your entire system and your creative. And then that model, right, that's behind Google is choosing whatever combination of keyword, campaign, and asset it believes is going to produce the highest probability of the conversion, or whatever you've told it to do, right? Be that maximize conversion with a ROAS or a CPA. That is how I believe it's working today. I don't believe it's what did the user type. I believe it is what is this user most likely to do next. So it's a prediction model, not a precision model. And that's what's driving the system right now, again, in my opinion. So if I'm telling you, this is my opinion, this is where we're at, this is what I believe based on accounts that I'm working with, based on how I feel like Google is speaking, then what is my evidence, right? I think that's really, really important, not to just make a claim, but to back it up. So I believe, again, accuracy is no longer the priority, right? So let's think about something traditional like negatives. Again, I find so many of my clients get so frustrated because they're using ChatGPT, they're using all these tools. Like everyone told me to add negatives. Well, in the past, negatives worked as a hard wall. But lately, when I'm looking at accounts, we're seeing them behave more like suggestions. There was a PPC chat conversation last year that happened on the PPC chat channel. I highly recommend that for anyone running Google Ads. And in there, it was confirmed that surfaces like AI overviews, AI mode, and these ads, they're matched with a deeper intent. They require broad match to get in there, or as Google says, keywordless targeting. And so I believe that was really super revealing as to where that was going, because again, they are matched to a quote unquote deeper intent. What is a deeper intent, right? It's predictive. And so, the question came up in this chat, right? And I found this to be even more telling. And somebody asked, why when somebody types in an exact model, right, an exact product number in Google Ads, they're typing in exactly what they want, maybe even like a long digit number, why would a different product show up? And the official answer was it happens if another product is predicted to result in a conversion, or, the product that the user typed in, algorithm believe that will not result in a conversion. So let that sink in. So Google is saying, again, official answers, that they're ignoring a user-specific request for model A, and they're going to show them model B if the algorithm thinks model B is more likely to get a conversion. That's not a better match. That's not a better intent. The user is typing in exactly what they want, and the algorithm is prioritizing liquidity, right? So the outcome over literal accuracy, which is, again, what intent matching would be. So my second piece of evidence is really the journey being the new keyword. So there's this new thing that I haven't explained yet on YouTube, right? I haven't talked about it, but it is journey aware bidding. JAB, journey aware bidding for short. And really, the search query is no longer the primary signal in that. In the documentation for journey aware bidding, which I believe is in a closed beta right now, it might even be an open beta, it says that it allows non-biddable journey stages, right? So that is included in this new journey aware bidding. And they're saying like a site visit or a middle of funnel download to influence the bid for a primary conversion. So in this case, you're not just paying for that keyword anymore. You're actually in an auction-based system that's banking on Google's ability to predict that user's behavior based on signals that you can't always necessarily see, and then some that you're feeding it. So the prediction isn't about the word itself. It's about that behavior and whether that user in the specific context that you allow and feed the platform is going to take that next step. Plus, again, the signals that you can't see, right? Device, battery life, browsing history, things that we don't know, right? Google hasn't published those for us to know because of privacy. So is that user now worth that auction price? Again, I feel like that's moving away from intent. My other piece of evidence, what I'm going to call the liquidity mandate, right? So it's this introduction that just came out the other day, and I think this is what really sealed it for me, of campaign total budgets. So I always look at Google will come out with something, and at first I was like, yes, campaign total budgets for search and PMAX, because historically we've had to use daily budgets. We were able to use the campaign total budgets in demand gen and YouTube, and it was great. You could put in a flight and say, hey, spend my money. Here's my campaign total budget. But I know Google. I love Google. They've given me a career, but I know that a lot of times when they're doing things, they're not like, hey, we're going to make this better for the advertiser. It's sort of a mix of better for the advertiser, but better for us. And I believe the campaign total budgets is just exactly what Google needs to become more predictive. Because what it really is doing is it's removing that daily spending limit to ensure that your budget is fully utilized by an end date. So Google, if you look again in that documentation, which I do that all day because I'm consulting to clients, Google recommends relaxing these targets to ensure that the money is spent. And again, that is in the official release notes if you're looking at the documentation that Google has already put up. So when you combine broad match requirements in AI services plus total budgeting, the system really stops being a filter for traffic and starts being really that accelerator for AI to learn and predict, because you haven't capped it with that daily budget. So the other thing that I'm going to say is smart matching. And I don't know why I didn't connect this sooner. Maybe because smart matching has sort of become one of those things that has sort of evolved slowly and slowly over time. But think about something like close variants, right? If the AI predicts a conversion, it'll often find a way around that negative keyword that we talked about earlier in the video by treating the query as a close variant or reclassifying it under an intent cluster that isn't blocked. And again, I am not saying that Google is being malicious or bad. I'm saying that the algorithm is finding those pockets where that can actually work. And again, I'm basing this off of real world looking at account behavior, not just theory. I have seen multiple times where competitor brands match to close variants. I think other people have seen it, and you've seen it online. They talk about it. And this, again, is more of that shift from the query to the identity. And I think what's often lost in this transition is that Google is really no longer bidding on that query. They're bidding on the user itself. And I think that's an important delineation when we talk about a predictive model. In that old model, the keyword was that universal bucket. But as we're moving into 2026, in the new way that I see this, the auction price is going to change. So if a user typed in best running shoes, it's not going to be the same price as if somebody else typed in best running shoes that maybe didn't show the history that another user did to convert, or maybe their economics weren't as good. So they're really looking at that individual user, and are they that person that's more likely to convert, if that makes sense. So it's a little delineated, but I think that is an important delineation here. They're looking at the purchase history. What is the value to the ecosystem? They're looking at the person as a whole. And at first, when I said this, I thought, wow, okay, it's going to be a really hard dot to connect for people. But then I thought, think about it like this. Think about Performance Max. Performance Max has search, but Performance Max also has YouTube. Performance Max also has demand gen. And so that user has a capped amount of time, right? They're going to be online. And so if you look at it from a user value, then what type of YouTube ad are you going to show them? What type of stuff are you going to show them in demand gen if they are higher value? So I think that that's kind of how you have to think about it when you think about these holistic campaigns. That's part of why it's looking at the user, not necessarily the query, because that person is spending time online. Do I show them the shoe ad while they're browsing YouTube, or do I show them the makeup ad? Which one are they more likely to convert in? That's what they'll show if I know someone like Sarah is online for 2 hours every afternoon. So you aren't really competing in your own category. You're competing for that time and that attention with that user, especially in these campaigns like Performance Max. Or again, like a broader match campaign that's a little bit more nuanced. That'll be a little different, but very similar. So again, you aren't just competing for that spot on search results, you're competing for that specific person's attention based on a profile that Google has built behind the scenes. So again, old model and new model, the search query, the queries, really you're looking at a user profile, right? Identity and behavior. So the last part that I see about this, and I think this is the part that I always think about, right? Because the biggest complaint, right, next to, I don't know what's going on, I have the perfect setup that I get from clients, is really like, why are my costs going up? What I've talked about in this whole video is the primary driver of CPC inflation. Because the system is no longer bidding at the keyword level, but it's bidding on a predicted outcome level. And so it justifies an aggressive bid based on the user's perceived value. So you might see a $15 CPC for a keyword that historically cost $5. And it's not because competition has increased, but it's because Google predicted that this specific user was a high-value target, again, based on the behaviors that we can't see, and it charged you a higher CPC to reach them. And so this matters to you because I'm going to call it the minimum effective dose. A prediction is a volume game. Small and mid-sized businesses are facing structural disadvantage from the very start. There's a minimum effective dose of data, which is really 30 to 50 conversions per month, to even have the slightest chance of success in an ad platform that's based like this. So if you're falling below the predictive engine and the predictive data, you're going to be in that exploration mode indefinitely. You end up paying for a learning phase without ever reaching that optimization phase. And so this dynamic, it's always existed, even back when we were making decisions by hand, but it's amplified with the AI because prediction modeling just takes that gap and exploits it, essentially. So when everyone's bidding in a predictive system, you cannot compete against manual data, gut checks, human-built rules, because the prediction scales and the human judgment really doesn't. If you have more questions about this, I did put up a video, which was the rule of 100 clicks. And with that video, I explained how I used to do it in the old days. And I think it's a really good context to understand when you start thinking about this. So for you, the advertiser, the person coming in consulting to me, you aren't just fighting your competitors. You're fighting this inherent margin of error that the AI prioritizes probability over relevance. It leads to the bidding occasionally hallucinating and the connection between the query and the ad, which is essentially an aggressive semantic expansion, might cause issues. And this bid is just to see if it might convert, and you end up paying for that. Even if it's a miss, right? You're going to end up paying that higher CPC. And so you really are entering with Google Ads a new power dynamic where creative is the keyword. We've been saying that creative was the keyword, but I think it's really even more important in this predictive model because Google is saying we trust our own inputs more than yours. We trust that we know better than you. Think about the example I said above about someone typing in the exact model number. And so with that, the creative weighing is going to be more important. Google's AI is going to scan images, videos to determine your audience. If your image shows a luxury kitchen, Google will find luxury seekers, even if the keywords are generic. And then again, that push for value-based bidding. By moving towards value-based bidding, Google can charge more for a high-value predicted conversion, regardless of keyword competition. So you're not paying for the conversion, you're paying a higher bid on that predicted conversion. And then again, we also have the opacity that we're dealing with, not being able to see. We still have gotten a little bit more transparency in PMAX, and I will say that I still feel like the system is becoming more of a black box. With AI, opacity isn't a bug. It protects the predictive model and how it works because we as humans would want to make those changes. We'd say we know better. And so they'll give a little, but it's not ever going to be fully a system where we can make all the changes. And so how do you, after listening to this long talk about me telling you this is how I think it goes, how do you advertise when predictions rule the auction? Do you just pull out and say, hey, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm not going to do Google Ads, I cannot trust you? And if you've made it this far in my video, then you've reached the part that I think makes me as a consultant fundamentally different than most of the industry right now. So again, I ended up with this point of view because I felt like how-to content on here. I mean, you can look at my channel. It just wasn't allowing businesses to be successful fully. I've had so many clients that have come to me that have been chasing how to do this, how to do that, and they've just been frustrated. And so through my coaching calls, I found that once my clients understood that Google is optimizing towards outcomes and not accuracy, they've stopped fighting these wrong battles. And so the clients that are coaching with me, they've stopped obsessing over match types and trying to force Google to be a certain way and be literal when it's not really behaving literally. And instead, my clients have begun to focus on the only things that still move the needle in a predictive world, which is signal strength, feeding the data better conversion data, offline conversions, enhanced conversions. And then again, my clients have also strongly do everything they can to make sure that there's no junk, no spam leads, no low value data. And then they've embraced a feedback loop. So where if AI predicts something wrong, they go in and do what they can to remove that from being part of the bidding algorithm, because AI is going to find more pockets of exactly what you don't want. And so if you have confusion about that, I did a video earlier about signals, I think about a week or a week and a half ago, that you can watch. So all that said, to wrap it up, I think that a lot of this aligns to the economics. You need to set targets that allow for a little bit of exploration without breaking the bank account. You also need to be very, very clear on your landing page and make sure the semantic meaning of your destination matches the prediction. And I believe this is the new skill set. This is how I help my clients. You cannot steer the ship with a rudder anymore. You have to influence the current. Predictions are the new decision maker. Advertiser inputs are really just suggestions. So the key takeaways: predictions are greater than precision. Google will ignore the exact match request and negative keywords if its model predicts a higher probability of conversion. You have to face the facts. The user is the target, not the word. Bidding has shifted from what is the word worth to what is the specific person worth based on their identity and journey history and the success tasks. Just rising CPCs that are often the result of Google predicting a high-value user and bidding aggressively on your behalf, regardless of keyword competition. And then lastly, the minimum effective dose. So if your account generates fewer than 30 to 50 conversions per month, you're kind of stuck in this indefinite exploration mode, paying for the AI to learn rather than optimize. It is something that you'll have to do, but there's ways to clear your signals and sort of start to mitigate that a little bit. In any case, I hope this helped. I'm glad to be on here making a video. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and see you in the comments. Have a good day.